On today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, Ed Ingram may land in some real money. Let's talk about that. And if you could build the perfect Texans roster, who you roll with.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Fun show lined up today as we dive into kind of debunking theories and talk about a little bit of HT, Henry To'oTo'o's improvement from 2025 and also some things that he needs to work on. Also debunking theories that Blake Fisher is not a good player. Let's get away from that. Houston used him in the role. He was good in the role, but I don't think Houston should absolutely move on from him or the thought of him being the right tackle for the future. Also, if you could build the perfect Texans roster with $15, Matt Shaw, Davis Mills, Deshaun Watson, CJ Stroud, who do you pick and why are you picking? So I'm going to have a little fun with that in the second segment, but I wanted to open up today's show with two things. First and foremost, above all, we got to talk about Ed Ingram landing in some real money. Aaron Wilson, reported by Aaron Wilson, he'd be expected to make between $15 to $18 million of this free agency. But the talk of the town yesterday, CJ Stroud cutting his hair. No more locks. He, got a cool little fade, got a tip of fade on the side. And we're not going to overblow that, guys. I just think, for him, it's a new look. It's something that he maybe wanted to move away from. Could it be a PR quote unquote stunt? Maybe for some people, but us brothers, we wake up and choose that we want to cut our hair after thinking about it for a while, and that may have just been what happened with CJ Stroud. So listen, shout out to the brother. We also saw that he was, a couple of days ago, fellowshipping with some fellow believers, and I think for CJ Stroud, he may just be in a place where his relationship with his Lord and Savior is more important than anything. And, in return, the Lord looks out for us, right? You do good by him, he do good by you. So hopefully the 2026 season is going to be the blessing in disguise of a new haircut. But shout out to CJ Stroud for doing what he wants to do. Now, again, it's important to talk about Ed Ingram possibly having a huge market this free agent period. Again, like I mentioned, the expectation for Ed Ingram is between $15 to $18 million per year, according to Aaron Wilson. He's coming off his best season of his career in the NFL. The 13th highest guard overall and the 6th highest guard in the run game per PFF. And I want to tell you guys just a little bit about Ed Ingram's value that he had for the Houston Texans and why on the squad show I said, hey, listen, I'm not paying that because that may take away from the premium price. Like if he's making $15 to $18 million, what Tyler Linderbaum going to be making, right? What Cade Mays is going to be making. I still think Houston, once they be able to, go through and restructure money, Houston will be able to get the amount of money that they need for either of those players if they don't consider bringing back Ed Ingram. And we've seen Nick Caserio, who has given some love to players before, who some of these guys that may be on the way out, he's picked them up, and if they perform well, he's worked a few things with them to maybe return back. But this kind of situation reminds me a little bit of Stephon Diggs, right? Where you trade for him, you avoid the last 3 years of his deal. He has a good season while he's healthy. He goes down. But in the offseason, Nick Caserio tries to rework a deal out. It's not enough. Stephon goes and chases the money and then ends up chasing a Super Bowl. So I'm curious to see how Caserio goes about getting Ed Ingram back. But when you talk about value, at first I was against it, but I go back and look at some of the things that Ed Ingram did for Houston and what his value was for a team that struggled running the ball. When the Houston Texans rushed towards the right guard, 5.83 yards per carry at one point in the season. That was second in the national NFL, in the National Football League. So it's not like Ed Ingram isn't a good player, right? Maybe you look at two things. Before coming to Houston, was it just not a fit for Ed Ingram in Minnesota? coming to Houston, getting under an offensive line coach that looked at his physicality, his toughness, his ability to be a bully of some sort at the line of scrimmage as a value, and they worked on some of the technique things, and he just got better as the year went on. For a team that really struggled to run the ball, the one or two outliers, because I do think when Trent Brown was out there, his big body alone, maybe not necessarily him in open field or just his activity at the line of scrimmage, but his big body alone helped with the ability for Houston to be able to run the ball at some point during the year. But you look at Ed Ingram and you say to yourself, at first, I didn't think that was real value there. At first, I didn't think that, he's worth it. But then you look at some of the numbers, and then you pop on the tape, and then you look at the film, and then you look at the fact that for the Houston Texans throughout the year, who was a stable run blocker? It wasn't Jake Andrews on the inside. It wasn't a City Soul. It wasn't the, Jared Patterson. It wasn't the Juice Scruggs. It wasn't a Titus Howard in terms of run blocking. It was absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, Ed Ingram. And for Houston, who, if I sit back and say to myself, and I've said it here before, for Houston, year in and year out, there seems to be a shuffling or losing of a player that meant so much in one season, and they can't get that player to return back. Noah Brown, Stephon Diggs. Now we look at Ed Ingram. That has hurt the offense in some way, shape, form every single time. So it may behoove the Houston Texans to look at Ed Ingram and say, okay, listen, man, $15 to $18 million. We can't reach that top end, the 18, but we took a chance on you. We put you in an environment that allow you to grow. Where can we meet on the middle on this situation so we can get you to come back and be a part of our run game, our offensive line, and protecting the franchise quarterback and CJ Stroud? Now, I would say for the front office, Caserio and staff, looking at working out this deal, if they feel like they can get with the funds that they're going to have to create, and I think that's the NFL salary cap is going to go up. So every team will essentially be operating in somewhat of a green, but that still doesn't help out the Houston Texans in the long run, because a lot of that you're going to look at having to re-sign some guys, right? And so for the value that they're going to have to create, is there another player or two out there that they feel, after scouting the free agent pool, scouting the draft, will bring the same physicality, i.e., listen, maybe a late round pick like Keelan Rutledge, same physicality, same running ability in terms of run blocking ability, excuse me. There's a couple of first round picks that, when you look at the physicality, the nastiness, the attitude, which is what I think the Houston Texans offensive line needs. They need more of an attitude guys, physical, nasty guys, not a lot of that swagness going on, right? A lot of you like to joke about that, but in all seriousness, I think that's why Ed Ingram worked out for Houston in a lot of different ways in terms of his play. But if there's another guy or two out there that the 15, 18 million could go to for a cheaper price that can bring the same thing, then by all means go for it. But again, every offseason going into the following year, the Houston Texans lose, whether it's by free agency or whether it be by injury, the Houston Texans lose a somewhat of a prominent piece or productive piece to that offensive side of the ball. And then that following season, they miss them. And I just wonder if this could be the case of, man, the Houston Texans really miss Ed Ingram and what he brought, if they don't replace him with a same caliber of player or better. Now it's time to have a little fun in the show. If you had $15, you could build the perfect Texans roster: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive unit, offensive line unit. How would you go about putting that unit together, that team together? Let's have a little bit more fun when we return back to the Locked On Texans podcast. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life this year. TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You upload your documents and go about your day and get updates right in the TurboTax app. For a limited time only, you can get your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. And also, Texan fans, perfect opportunity to let you know we're all in this together. And that said, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. February can be a lot. Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and so much to talk about relationships, right? And honestly, it can feel like everyone else has it all together in their love life. That's not always the case, guys. But here's the truth. Whether you're married, dating, single, or just focusing on yourself, just chilling like us brothers like to say, most people are still figuring out. And no matter what or where you are in your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. It can help you get a clear understanding of what you want, what feels heavy, and how to take some pressure off of yourself. Therapy can help you recognize patterns that might be weighing relationships down. It can also help you communicate better, see healthier boundaries, and stop carrying everything alone. BetterHelp has a licensed therapist in every state in the U.S., and they do the initial matchworking for you so you can focus on your goals. If you want to switch therapists, you can do that at any time. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/locked on. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/locked on. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Shout out to my YouTubers out there. Shout out to my audio listeners out there. We're going to have a little fun right now. If you could build the perfect Texans roster, quarterback from any era, running back from any era, receiver from any era, offensive line from any era, defensive player from any era, and also head coach from any era, who would you choose? But you only got $15 to do that. Now, let's take a look at the list. For my audio listeners, check this out. $1, the list for $1. Davis Mills, you get Davis Mills for $1. Devin Singletary for $1. Brandon Cooks for $1. For $2, you get Matt Schaub, Lamar Miller, Nico Collins. Each of these players are, in this hypothetical sense, $2. So if you go with Matt Schaub and Lamar Miller, that's $4 combined. You have to put together a roster with $15. For $3, you get CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, and D-Hop. Now, for $5, you get D. Watson, Arian Foster, Andre Johnson, three of the best at their position in franchise history. Offensive line, $2, the 2023 offensive line. For $3, the 2019 offensive line. For $5, the 2012 offensive line. Defensive player, for $2, you get the 2008 Mario Williams. For $3, you get the 2025 Will Anderson. For $5, you get the 2012 J.J. Watt. For head coach, $1 Gary Kubiak, $2 Bill O'Brien, $3 D'Amico Ryans. And I'm going to just say this. I have the head coaches in order of the way that I think that they are the best head coach. I think Gary Kubiak was number 3, Bill O'Brien number 2, and D'Amico Ryans number 1. And that's why I have them rated as such with the money. So I want to hear from you guys, right? Let me know in the comment section, tweet me, or you can also, this is a great way to get involved in the Locked On Texans Super Discord chat. Find that on Supercast, lockedontexans.supercast.com. Hit the show link. Hit the show links as well to join. You also get access to an ad-free Locked On Texans show. But if this was me, this is a quarterback league. You need a quarterback, right? $5 or $3 for CJ Stroud, $5 for D Watson. I'm going to go Stroud. But I also know CJ Stroud needs a dog beside him, right? So in this case, I'm going to go with Andre Johnson. So now I'm looking at $8 right now. 3 for CJ Stroud, 5 for Andre Johnson. Now I gotta go and pick me a running back out, right? Now I can follow up with Joe Mixon. That's gonna put me at 11. But I like Lamar Miller. I like Lamar Miller as my running back. Lamar Miller I thought was good. And also remember, guys, we gotta pick. We gotta be smart with how we go about this. So CJ Stroud for $3, Andre Johnson for $5, Lamar Miller. Now that's $2. That said, I'm going to go with the at head coach. I'm going to go with. Ooh, this is tough because now I got to be real careful. At head coach, I'm going to go with Bill O'Brien. Now I'm at $12. Oh man. No, at head coach, I'm actually going to go with Gary Kubiak at head coach. I'm going to go with the. Oh man, I'm going to go with. Because I'm at $9 now, or I'm at $11 now. So my only two options really is the 2023 offensive line and 08 Mario Williams. That's kind of tough. I think I can win some ball games. Listen, here's the thing. CJ Stroud and Andre Johnson. I think he's a player that CJ Stroud needs an Andre Johnson. Still quiet, but commands a lot and will get vocal when needed, right? And so this is a tough one. But I'm going to stick with CJ Stroud and Andre Johnson. And listen, I think the 2023 offensive line was a little underrated. A lot of people say that they couldn't run the ball, but a bulk of that year was wasted by Dameon Pierce snaps. If y'all remember, once we saw Devin Singletary, we used to call Motor out here. That's his nickname. I mean, that was a stretch of games where 5 yards per carry, 5.1 yards per carry, 3 yards per carry, but that was on 6 carries that game against Jacksonville late November. So he'd really get an opportunity to get it going, but 4.5 yards per carry, 5 yards per carry, 4.7 yards per carry, 4.9 yards per carry, 5 yards per carry. During that stretch of games, he had a game where he rushed for 150, 112, 121, and 80 yards as well. And you also look at what he was able to do, as a pass catcher throughout the season. 193, which really isn't spectacular, but it's an underrated offensive line in Houston's history. Like a lot of people say they couldn't run the ball that year, and I'm like, early in the season, the Texans were just wasting snaps given to Dameon Pierce that year. And I think they learned from it, and then you start to see Motor get more and more opportunities. He rushed for 4.2 yards per carry on the season, 900 yards on 216 carries. In the first game in the playoffs against the Browns, 5.1 yards per carry, 1 TD. Now, when they played the Baltimore Ravens, as they did the first time, the team struggled all around, with being able to run the ball. But that 2023 offensive line was decent. You look at Gary Kubiak and his ability to call an offense with an upgraded quarterback. Does that extend his life in the league? And so I'd pair Gary Kubiak. And a lot of you guys like the Shanahan system. Well, Kubiak handprints are all over that. Then the 08 Mario Williams. He is not the 2025 Will Anderson. He's not the 2012 J.J. Watt, but Mario Williams was a damn good player for Houston, who a lot of Houstonians still don't like because they didn't draft Vince Young in that draft class. However, he was the better NFL player, guys. So, again, I got C.J. Stroud, $3. Andre Johnson, $5. That puts me at 8. I'm going to go with Lamar Miller at $2. That puts me at 10. Garrett Kubiak at $1. That puts me at 11. The 2023 offensive line and Mario Williams rounds me out for $2 a piece. That's $4. That's at 15. What would you guys do if you were the general manager of the Houston Texans and you had $15 to get it right? Let me know in the comments section or on social media at John_Hickman12 or on Instagram at some sports guy. When we return, let's quickly debunk some theories about the 2025 season centered around Blake Fisher. And I also want to dive back a little bit into Henry To'oTo'o's up and down year for the Houston Texans. More Locked On Texans talk when we return. Hey, Texas fans, perfect time to let you guys know about Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in to take the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, or paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or, my favorite, the hidden fees. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboard materials, and direct deposits save me and save business owners from hours every week. Try Gusto today at gusto.com/locked on NFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's right, you get 3 months free first payroll at gusto.com/locked on NFL. That's gusto.com/locked on NFL. Plus, Texas fans, listen, I get it. When it comes to having to cook every day, it can be difficult, it can be tiring. But as the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one, right? Being busy on work days, cold winter nights, packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy to follow recipes, that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by other users of any meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/locked on. That's homechef.com for 50% off your first box with free shipping and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Welcome back, Locked On listeners. I wanted to close out today's episode just kind of looking at a couple of things from the 2025 season. And I want to start with Henry To'oTo'o, a guy who, I'm president of the fan club here, but I can, be honest and say that for Henry, it was some bad moments last year. And the bad moments, I think really more so came in coverage. Even when I look at some of the things he did in the run game, which is where he is the best at, that's his best attribute, downhill tackling, not necessarily having to think. 22 missed tackles, that led the team. That's not a good thing for Henry T. And you're going to miss tackles, right? You're absolutely going to miss tackles. But when I look at where majority of those missed tackles were missed for Henry T, got a tough time in coverage. Also, Henry T led the team in yards allowed in 2025, led the team in yak yards allowed in 2025. He had 425 yak allowed. The next closest was 290. So nobody really came close to that. 3 TDs allowed on him. He also allowed 70% of passes to be completed his way. I wanted to bring that up because, Jordan Reed, and I think a lot of people are starting to see this with the Shrine Bowl, and then Senior Bowl, which we'll get into more this week. I'm going to have a guest on to talk about the Senior Bowl. But a lot of people are looking at players like linebacker Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. Like there's some studs coming out this year for the linebacker class, and it feels like it hadn't been that way in a while. And a lot of these guys can drop back in coverage. A lot of these guys can be some good on or off ball linebackers to where you can trust them to drop back into cover 3 or cover the man out of the backfield, and or tight end coming across their face. Like that's where if there was a weakness in Houston's game last year, a lot of us can point to Henry To'oTo'o. And this is a year that if Houston decides to, depending on what they do in free agency or just depending on how they view the linebacker group altogether coming out in this class, they could very well look to upgrade from Henry To'oTo'o. And I'll say this, man, Henry T got exposed a couple of times in coverage defending wheel routes. The R.J. Harvey touchdown, the Ashton Jitty touchdown. Like he had moments this year where it wasn't just talent on talent. It was bad technique, stopping his feet, moving over to an area, and just being stuck in the mud in coverage, right? Feet may be chopping, but it ain't going nowhere. Like that was a problem for Henry To'oTo'o. And I think that for HT moving forward, my apologies, guys. But I think for HT moving forward, that's an area of his game where he has to elevate. We talk about the Houston Texans defense replicating what they did in 2025, moving forward in 26 and 27 until all these guys are under contract, where they got to get better each and every year. So the trust is Will Anderson's going to get better. Derek Stingley will continue to play good football like he's played good football. But the middle of the field, Azeez is going to be great. And this is why this is a great conversation to have. Because Azeez won't be here forever. He signed an extension. He has a year or two left with the Houston Texans. Eventually, they're going to have to find his replacement. And if I'm Henry T's agent, or if I'm his trainer, if I'm guys around him, I'm telling them, hey, man, this is a year-in, year-out league, which means every year something changes. You have to get better, or they could eventually find somebody between round 3 and 4, and say, we like him a lot. We feel like he can come in and impact this day 1 and phase him in, slowly take away snaps. I'm just saying, Henry T has to get better in coverage and also improve, I think, overall in open space where he really struggles. Like if you get him on a one-on-one situation with a running back or a one-on-one situation with a tight end, they'll make a play and get upfield on Henry T and cause him this tackle. He got to get better. Also, debunking the theory that Blake Fisher is not good. And I want to go more into this as the offseason goes about, because the Houston Texans really, in some ways, may be in a conundrum. You want Trent Brown back. Does Trent Brown want to be back? And what is his price point? Okay. Ed Ingram could command between $15 to $18 million. If Houston opts to move on from that, that leaves them with 3 voids: guard, center, guard, left guard, right guard, and center. So they have to replace that. People say the easy fix is to put Titus Howard back at guard. And again, guys, I'm against that because I feel like, and Howard has said it himself, he's been pissed. He wants to play tackle. He's a tackle. But Blake Fisher was not bad when he played tackle last season. When he stepped in for Titus Howard versus the Broncos, didn't allow a sack. Filled in for Ariante Ursary at left tackle against the Chargers. 0 sacks, 1 pressure allowed. And this is not while he's an inline tight end. These are real snaps at tackle. Blake Fisher was not just bad last year. He improved in terms of being able to pass block, and I think he showed what he can be as a run blocking tackle as well. So for Houston, what do you do moving forward? Titus wants to be at tackle. And here's another thing. If Titus plays guard for a full season, I think that would kind of mess up the guard market. And teams around the league is going to blame the Houston Texans for that. If he doesn't restructure and he plays guard at 27.5 or whatever it is for this upcoming year, and he hasn't made a Pro Bowl, no disrespect to Titus Howard, I thought this year should have been the year. But again, I think that playing guard and tackle switching so much hurt him. But he hadn't made a Pro Bowl. He hadn't made an All-Pro. You got some of these guards that has these accolades. Once they get to having to negotiate their money, if I'm an agent, I'm looking at Titus Howard. I'm saying he's making 27.5, at least in this year, of course. We need to get that and more. And so for Houston, they're in a spot where do you trust Cole Popovich to get him to his, Blake Fisher I'm referring to get him to his peak performance? And twice last season, when he had to fill in at tackle, yeah, he played some good football for the Houston Texans. So now for Houston, you got Howard, you got Fisher, you got Trent Brown, who you want to, come back. Two of those guys are under contract. You can shift Titus Howard to left guard. You can possibly look at starting Blake Fisher if you don't get Trent Brown to return back. You can upgrade center and guard between the draft and free agency. What do you do? Or if you're the Houston Texans, if you feel comfortable about a couple of these guys coming out, maybe you look to trade Blake Fisher and get value back for the former second-round pick. Don't know how much value. Obviously, maybe a late-round pick. He hadn't shown much in the league. But on 2 occasions last year, he showed that he can play some good football. Thank you for watching today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texas fans across the nation, peace.